laughed at Wum when they scanned him. They said a human could only fight at 40% power. But in the blood-soaked arenas of the Vorathian warship, Wunman proved them wrong. While holding back, he humiliated their greatest champions until they finally pushed him too far. Then the aliens learned the terrifying truth: never force a human to fight at 100%. Before we dive deeper into the story, please subscribe. It costs you nothing but helps stellar HFY a lot. The Vorathian warship Dominion's edge thrummed with cold, mechanical efficiency. Inside the scanning chamber, Engineer Jax Harlan was dragged forward, wrists burning under glowing energy cuffs. Despite the pain, his face remained calm, eyes sharp as they scanned every rivet, every glowing panel, and every exit. The Vorathians towered over him, their obsidian exoskeletons etched with pulsing silver veins. Their compound eyes reflected nothing, no emotion, no mercy, only pure calculation. High Executive Rax stood like a statue as swarms of drones descended on Jax. Needle-thin probes pierced his skin. Holographic readouts bloomed in the air around them, bathing the room in cold blue light. Subject: human. Designation: engineer, the mechanical voice announced. Muscular efficiency: 41%. Neural response latency: suboptimal. Adrenaline output capped at safe biological thresholds. Projected combat viability: 40% of theoretical maximum. Vrax's mandibles clicked in quiet dismissal. A primitive species. Fit only for labor or early round fodder in the arenas. Jax forced a tired, defiant smile. 40%, huh? You sure about those numbers? A guard slammed a baton into his ribs. White-hot pain exploded through his side, but Jax locked it down, refusing to show weakness. They think they've measured me, he thought. Perfect. Hours later, they threw him into the gladiatorial pits beneath the arena decks. The Dominion's edge hosted brutal blood sports, a way for the Vorathians to test conquered species and entertain their elite. Losers died quickly. Winners earned the privilege of dying later, and more painfully. The energy barrier dropped with a sharp hum. Jax's first opponent was a hulking Gorthak brute, a mountain of muscle, rage, and jagged armor. The creature roared so loudly the sand beneath their feet trembled. Jax's heart hammered against his ribs as the beast charged. He didn't meet it head-on. Instead, he sprinted sideways, eyes darting across the arena floor, uneven terrain, loose gravel piles, and a half-buried metal strut from previous fights. The Gorthak swung a massive fist. Jax ducked at the last second, scooped up a handful of gravel, and hurled it straight into the brute's eyes. The monster bellowed in fury, momentarily blinded. In that vital opening, Jax jammed the metal strut under the creature's knee and wrenched upward with perfect torque. Cartilage tore with a sickening crunch. The giant collapsed. Before it could recover, Jax was on its back, driving precise elbow strikes into nerve clusters he had studied on the way to the arena. The Gorthak convulsed violently, then went still. The Vorathian announcer's voice echoed through the arena, human victorious. Efficiency rating: 39%. Within projected parameters. In the observation lounge high above, Vrax tilted his head slightly. Adequate for a weakling. Proceed to the next tier. Jax stood alone in the center of the blood-stained sand, breathing hard but controlled. A thin line of blood trickled from his split lip. He looked up toward the glowing observation windows and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. They have no idea what 40% looks like when I actually mean it. The second fight came faster than expected. A lithe Zifri assassin slithered into the arena, its body covered in sleek black scales and armed with venomous, glowing blades. This opponent was faster, smarter, and far more deadly. It danced around Jax like a shadow, slicing shallow but burning cuts across his arms and shoulders. Each wound felt like acid eating into his flesh. Jax's vision began to narrow. Pain clawed at the edges of his mind, begging him to release the limits he had trained himself to obey. But he breathed through it, forcing his body to stay within the safe zone. He feigned a stumble, luring the assassin onto a patch of blood-slick sand. The moment it lunged, Jax pivoted sharply, caught its wrist, and twisted with brutal efficiency. He drove the creature's own venomous blade deep into its side. The Zifri shrieked in agony. Jax held it there until its struggles ceased. Human victorious, the announcer declared. Efficiency, 42%. Slight variance. Irrelevant. High Executive Rax's silver veins pulsed faster. A minor anomaly. Nothing more. But Jax could feel the scanners locked onto him, watching, measuring, judging his every move. He wiped the blood from his face and looked directly into the cameras. He smiled. Keep watching. 3 more fights. 3 more impossible victories. Each time, Jax Harlan operated maddeningly within the 40% limit the Vorathians had calculated. He won not through brute strength, but through ruthless ingenuity, turning the arena's own hazards against his enemies, exploiting microscopic weaknesses, and using physics as a deadly weapon. Never once did he exceed the boundaries they had drawn for him. In the dim, freezing holding cell between matches, Jax sat against the cold metal wall, teeth clenched as he stitched a deep gash on his thigh with a makeshift needle. Every movement sent fire through his body. His muscles screamed for rest, for the full release of adrenaline he kept chained deep inside. Sweat mixed with blood on his face. Not yet, he told himself. Make them curious first. Make them doubt. High above in the observation lounge, High Executive Rax reviewed the combat footage alongside 3 senior analysts. The holographic displays flickered with every movement Jax had made. Explain the variance, Rax demanded, his voice like cracking ice. Analyst KLYTH zoomed in on a frame where Jax had lifted a fallen support beam far heavier than his muscle density should allow. Biological governors appear fully active. He is pacing himself. Like a machine deliberately operating below redline to extend its runtime. Humans are known for irrational persistence, another analyst added. But the scans are clear. 40% is his absolute ceiling. Vrax remained silent, silver veins pulsing slowly along his obsidian exoskeleton. Something was wrong. He could feel it. The next bout was announced. Jax stepped into the arena to face twin reptilian warriors, sleek, coordinated killers who moved like one mind in 2 bodies. The Vorathian crowd's clicking grew louder, the closest they ever came to excitement. The reptiles flanked him perfectly. Jax's breathing was ragged now, a deep cut across his back weeping fresh blood with every motion. One warrior lunged. Jax dropped low, sweeping its legs while grabbing the second's tail and yanking hard. He used their own bodies as weapons, forcing them to crash into each other in a chaotic tangle of claws and fury. When the dust and blood settled, both reptilians lay broken and motionless. Human victorious, the announcer declared. Efficiency rating, 41.3%. Vrax rose from his seat. Bring me the full neural scan history. Something is very wrong with this data. Jax was dragged back to medical for maintenance. While repair drones patched his wounds, he felt the deeper probes digging into his mind. They were searching harder now. Good. Let them dig. In the observation room, Vrax watched Jax's vitals in real time. Heart rate elevated but tightly controlled. Adrenaline spiking, then deliberately suppressed. Neural activity showing clear, conscious inhibition of motor pathways. He is holding back, Vrax finally said, the words tasting alien and bitter. Why would a prey species do this? The question lingered heavily in the sterile air like an unspoken threat. That night cycle, as Jax lay exhausted in his cell, he dreamed of Earth. He saw the engineering bay of the Theseus before the ambush. He saw the faces of the crew he couldn't save. The memory burned like molten steel in his chest, forging his resolve even harder. They want a monster? He thought, waking in cold sweat. Then I'll show them the one I've kept chained all this time. The following cycle, a special exhibition was announced across the ship. The arena floor had been transformed, spiked pits, shifting platforms, and random zero-gravity fields. The Vorathian crowd buzzed with anticipation. Jax stepped out onto the sand as the crowd's clicking reached a fever pitch. His opponent emerged from the opposite gate, a nightmarish biomechanical horror, half machine, half flesh. A captured cyborg from a previous campaign. Its silver eyes glowed with the same cold intelligence as Vorathian technology. For the first time since his capture, Jax felt real fear. Not of death, but of what he might be forced to unleash. The energy barrier dropped. The cyborg charged with terrifying speed, its hydraulic limbs screaming through the air. Jax's eyes narrowed. The real test had begun. The biomechanical cyborg was a nightmare made real. Towering and relentless, its hydraulic limbs moved with machine precision while patches of rotting organic flesh healed mid-fight. Its glowing silver eyes locked onto Jax with cold hatred. Jax dodged and calculated, every movement precise. He lured the monster onto a shifting platform, then triggered a sudden gravity flip. The cyborg slammed hard into a pit of razor-sharp spikes. But it tore free with a metallic screech, black ichor and sparks spraying violently. Jax's body was failing. Deep cuts burned across his torso. Cracked ribs made every breath feel like knives in his lungs. The biological governors inside him screamed for release, begging him to let go. Just a little more. Hold the line. He spotted the weakness, exposed coolant lines pulsing near the cyborg's spine. As the creature grappled him in a crushing embrace, Jax grabbed a jagged shard of broken platform and drove it deep into the lines with all his remaining strength. Superheated fluid exploded outward in a hissing spray. The cyborg convulsed violently, its systems short-circuiting in a storm of sparks and shrieks. Jax rolled free just as the monstrosity collapsed in a twitching heap. The arena fell into stunned silence. Then the announcer's voice rang out, "Human victorious. Peak efficiency recorded, 43.7%. Rescanning recommended." Back in his dimly lit cell, Jax collapsed against the wall, gasping. Moments later, a Vorathian interrogator entered, flanked by armed guards. "Explain your performance, human," the interrogator hissed. Jax let out a weak, bitter laugh. "Your scanners are working fine. I'm just a stubborn engineer who doesn't like being told what his limits are." High Executive Rax watched the interrogation through a holographic feed. His silver veins pulsed rapidly. He ordered immediate deeper cortical scans while Jax was sedated. The results were disturbing. Layers of voluntary neural dampeners. Self-conditioned overrides. A mind that treated its own body like a machine it could push, or hold back, at will. "He fights at 40% not because he must," Vrax concluded, his voice low and dangerous, "but because he chooses to. This is not efficiency. This is contempt." The revelation spread like wildfire through the command cast. Betting pools shifted dramatically. Some Vorathians demanded Jax's immediate execution. Others wanted him studied and dissected. Vrax saw a greater opportunity. "We will break him publicly," he declared. "Then we will peel his mind apart." They scheduled the final bout against their undefeated champion, Kraval, the Apex. A genetically perfected Vorathian warrior augmented with every forbidden enhancement. Kraval had never lost. His efficiency rating stood at a terrifying 98%. Jax was given one rest cycle. Instead of sleeping, he spent every moment mentally preparing. He reviewed every scan the Vorathians had taken of him. He memorized every weakness they had arrogantly revealed. Sitting alone in the dark cell, he whispered to himself, "If I go full power, I'm not coming back. But if I don't, they'll never fear us." The arena was packed beyond capacity. Vorathian dignitaries from across the sector had tuned in. The air crackled with electric tension. Jax stepped onto the blood-soaked sand. Across from him, Kraval emerged, a towering living weapon of reinforced chitin, steel, and pure malice. The champion's silver veins glowed like molten metal. Vrax's voice boomed across the arena. "This bout will determine if the human's defiance is mere illusion. Begin." The two warriors slowly circled each other. Jax felt every injury, every limit pressing down on him like a collapsing star. Kraval attacked with blinding speed. Jax barely dodged the first strike, the force of the blow shaking the ground. His heart pounded violently. The moment of truth was here. He could still hold back. Or he could finally break. Kraval was unlike anything Jax had faced before. The Apex Champion was a towering monster of genetically perfected fury, massive, armored and reinforced chitin and steel, every movement calculated to maim and destroy. His silver veins pulsed with deadly energy. Jax's clever tactics bought him precious seconds. He used flame jets, electrified floors, and shifting platforms against the champion, but Kraval adapted with terrifying speed. Every counterstrike landed like a hammer blow. Blood ran into Jax's eyes. His left arm hung useless at his side, shattered. Each breath was agony. The biological governors in his mind strained under impossible pressure, screaming for him to stop. Hold, he begged himself. Not yet. A devastating kick from Kraval sent Jax flying across the arena. He crashed hard into the energy barrier. Bones snapped. The Vorathian crowd erupted in loud clicking roars. High Executive Rax leaned forward in his seat, fascinated. He is still suppressing his output. Incredible. Jax pushed himself up from the blood-soaked sand, vision blurring. In that moment, memories flooded him, his fallen crew aboard the Theseus, the faces of friends he couldn't save, the blue skies of Earth now so far away. Something deep inside him finally cracked open. He looked straight up at Vrax's observation box, his voice amplified across the entire arena. You wanted 40%. You got it. Now you'll see the rest. Kraval charged for the killing blow, roaring with triumph. Jax stopped holding back. The change was instantaneous and terrifying. Adrenaline surged through his veins like liquid fire. Every biological safety limit he had spent years conditioning dissolved in an instant. Neural inhibitors vanished. His heart rate spiked into lethal territory. Muscles that should have torn apart operated far beyond their design capacity. Jax met Kraval head-on. The impact shook the entire arena floor. His fist, driven by pure will and desperation, cracked the champion's reinforced carapace with a deafening snap. Kraval staggered backward, silver eyes wide with shock. The fight turned into a savage, vicious storm. Jax moved like a mun possessed, faster, stronger, and utterly reckless. He took blows that would have killed any normal human and gave back tenfold. Red human blood mixed with glowing silver alien blood coated the sand. The crowd's clicking turned from excitement to horrified disbelief. Vrax's composure shattered. Impossible. His readings are exceeding 120% of previous maximum. Biological systems are self-destructing. Jax roared, a primal, guttural sound that echoed through the warship. With strength born of pure defiance, he grabbed the massive Kraval, lifted the champion overhead despite his own ripping muscles and grinding bones, and slammed him down onto an exposed power conduit. Electricity exploded through both of them. Kraval convulsed violently as arcs of lightning tore across his body. But Jax wasn't finished. In a final, catastrophic surge, he drove his good hand into the fracture he had created earlier and tore out the champion's vital core systems. Kraval's silver veins flickered and went dark. The undefeated Apex champion collapsed dead with a rattling final click. Jax stood over the broken body, swaying dangerously. His own body was shutting down, organs failing, internal bleeding catastrophic. Vision fading in and out, he looked up at the horrified Vorathians watching from above. You measured the wrong thing, he gasped, blood dripping from his mouth. You measured power. You should have measured will. Vrax screamed in fury, capture him. Dissect him alive. But Jax smiled through bloody teeth. During his previous repairs, he had sabotaged the arena systems. With the last of his strength, he triggered the hidden failsafe. Explosions rocked the lower decks. Alarms blared across the Dominion's edge. As Vorathian guards rushed into the arena, Jax collapsed to his knees, vision turning black at the edges. He had won. But the price was his own life. Chaos consumed the Dominion's edge. Alarms screamed through every corridor as Jax's final sabotage ripped through the ship's systems. Propulsion failed. Multiple arena decks vented into vacuum. Vorathian crew members scrambled in panic while emergency bulkheads slammed shut. In the medical bay, Jax Harlan's broken body was rushed onto a diagnostic table. His condition was catastrophic. Organs were failing one by one. Bones were shattered. Massive internal bleeding flooded his system. Yet somehow, his neural activity refused to flatline. High Executive Rax stormed into the observation room overlooking the medical bay, his silver veins blazing with fury and disbelief. "How?" he demanded, mandibles clicking sharply. "How does a 40% species do this?" The lead biologist's hands trembled as he reviewed the cascading data streams. Executor. Their bodies contained thousands of evolutionary governors, biological safeguards designed to prevent self-destruction. This human consciously overrode every single one of them. His final output reached nearly 300% of the initial scan before total systemic collapse. Another analyst spoke in a hushed, fearful tone. "We accessed captured human military archives during the scan. This phenomenon is not unique. They call it second wind. Berserker state. No man left behind." Their entire history is filled with individuals who shattered their own biological limits when their people were threatened. Vrax stared through the glass at the dying human. Even now, in his final moments, Jax's eyes fluttered open. They burned with raw, unyielding defiance. Fear. Vrax whispered, the word foreign on his tongue. "We have encountered a species that weaponizes its own mortality." The news of what happened in the arena spread like wildfire through the entire fleet. Warriors who had once mocked humans now demanded stricter protocols. Many requested immediate transfers away from human space. The legend grew rapidly. They fight at 40% until they decide not to. Never push them to 100%. In rare moments of lucidity, Jax whispered through bloody lips, his voice broadcast across the medical bay speakers, "Tell your empire. We're coming. And we won't be holding back." Vrax made his decision. Archive his neural patterns. Preserve the body for full dissection. We must understand this. Abomination. As technicians moved in with extraction tools, Jax's bloodied lips curved into one final, defiant smile. During his earlier repairs, he had planted micro-explosives within his own augmentations, a last act of sabotage no scanner had detected. The medical bay erupted in a contained but devastating explosion. Flames and shrapnel tore through the room. When the smoke cleared, Jax Harlan was gone. He died smiling. High Executive Rax stood motionless amid the aftermath, staring at the destruction. For the first time in his long life, he felt something cold crawl through his exoskeleton, genuine fear. The Dominion's edge limped away from the battlefield, scarred and broken, carrying a story that would haunt the Vorathian Empire for generations. One human engineer. One arena. One final, terrible revelation. Humanity did not fight at full power because full power was a line they drew for themselves, and erased the moment survival demanded it. Their greatest strength wasn't muscle, technology, or even intelligence. It was their terrifying, unquantifiable will to break every limit, including their own. And now, the Vorathians had seen it firsthand. The Dominion's edge limped back into Vorathian core space like a wounded beast. Its once pristine hull was scarred with explosions and hull breaches, a lasting testament to the destruction caused by a single human who refused to die quietly. High Executive Rax stood before the ruling conclave, the highest council of the Empire. The Grand Chamber was deathly silent as holographic footage played across every massive screen. The conclave watched in stunned horror as Jax Harlan shattered every expectation. They saw him lift their perfect champion overhead, tear through reinforced carapace, and smile through his own death. When the footage ended, the silence remained heavy. Vrax stepped forward, his voice low and strained. "Esteemed rulers. We believed we understood biological limits. We measured this human and labeled him weak, only 40% of his theoretical maximum. We were wrong." He paused, silver veins pulsing with unease. This species does not fight at full power because full power is not a fixed state for them. It is a line they draw for themselves, and erase the moment it becomes necessary. Their greatest strength is not found in muscle or technology. It is their terrifying, unquantifiable will to break every conceivable limit, including their own bodies, for the sake of victory and survival. One ancient elder clicked slowly, his compound eyes narrowed. Then we must ensure they are never pushed to that point again. But the damage had already been done. Across the Varathian fleet, the story of engineer Jax Harlan spread like a virus. Warriors who once laughed at human defiance now spoke his name with unease. Combat doctrines were rewritten overnight. Human resistance fleets, previously dismissed as minor threats, were reclassified as existential dangers. New orders were issued to every ship: avoid direct engagement with humans. Observe only. Never push them beyond their perceived limits. Back on Earth, a rescue fleet eventually discovered the wreckage of the Theseus. Inside its ruined databanks, they found Jax's final transmission, beamed out during the chaos of the arena. It contained critical data on Varathian weaknesses, ship schematics, and a simple, defiant message: we don't quit. Even at 40%. Tell them the rest is coming. Humanity mourned Jax Harlan as a hero. Statues were erected. His name was added to the roll of eternal valor. But in military academies, engineering bays, and special forces training grounds across the stars, his story became something far greater, a legend. They called it the 40% protocol: fight smart. Fight within your limits. But when the moment comes and everything is on the line, throw every limit away. Break yourself if you must. Just win. In the cold depths of space, Varathian commanders now carried a new warning in their logs: never corner a human. You may measure their strength. You will never measure their will. High Executive Rax stood alone on the observation deck of his repaired flagship, staring out into the starfield toward human territory. For the first time in his life, he truly understood the danger they faced. They had captured one man. They had measured him. They had found him wanting. Instead, they had awakened something ancient and terrifying within an entire species, something that could not be quantified, controlled, or truly defeated. The galaxy would never be the same. One human engineer had done what entire fleets could not. He had made the Varathian Empire afraid. And somewhere, in the vast darkness between stars, humanity prepared to answer the challenge. The rest was indeed coming. Subscribe.